We are live. Welcome to the podcast. Most people don't, but you do. Today is Monday, the 19th of August. We are talking at 9 a.m. Central, no, 9 a.m. Eastern. And I do that just because I know people will be watching the replay. But what's kind of cool is I want people to know that it's live right now. It's live right now. This is not recorded. The conversation is going to flow naturally. My name is Bart Berkey. I'm the founder of Most People Don't, and I am thrilled to be able to have on a very special guest. Pete DiMaio is the Chief Operating Officer with TravelBoom. We're going to talk a little bit about his bio, and I'll talk a little also about how I met him. So Pete was doing some filming when we were both at HITEC, and I was intrigued by his setup. I was intrigued by the conversations, by the topics of what he was sharing. So we went up, we said hello, we introduced ourselves, and I said, Pete, I have to have you on the show. We have to be able to get your word out to our 100,000 plus listeners. You're doing some really cool things, and you are helping companies succeed online in a way that might not be naturally thought about, and it's sometimes confusing. So I just love the way that you were very enthusiastic in chatting with me, explaining things to me. And I thought, yes, we have to share his story and some stories about TravelBoom because you are doing what most people are not doing. Without further ado, would like to welcome Pete DiMaio to the show. Pete, glad you're here.
Thank you so much, Bart. I'm very, very excited. Since we had a chance to talk at High Tech, I've been looking forward to getting back together with you again because I think we had a phenomenal conversation and can't wait to continue it right now.
Yeah, and often I will send some advanced questions about this is what we kind of want to talk about, and then I just threw Pete a loop before we hit record and went live. Said, but I might not even ask you all those questions. But I'm kidding. It always gets to the essence on our show. It always gets to the essence of who you are as an individual, and then we will get to what you are doing. So who you are is the most important part. And Pete, if you could kind of talk about growing up, where did you grow up, and what were some of the and who were some of the early influencers in your life?
Yeah, that's a big topic, right? I could probably go on for a long time, but kind of to distill things down, I was born in Florida, moved immediately to Delaware, and then my dad decided he didn't like the rat race of being in sales. His brother was a pilot and like a little small plane pilot, and they were down in South Carolina, and they were decided to go for a little flight. They found a piece of land out in Ainer, South Carolina, which is like 30 miles from Myrtle Beach. They mapped it out on a paper map. This is back in the 80s, and my dad bought the land. So he moved his family from Delaware down to Ainer, South Carolina, in the country, and I've been in this area. Tried to leave a few times, and always has really brought me back. So kind of that's how I kind of got to where I am now, and from there it has just been an evolution. A lot of people have those big epiphanies of they just change something or whatnot. And my track has been a little bit different. It's just been more of a let's just keep moving the ball forward, and you go improve, 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 and I feel like I've done okay. I've gotten to where I am now, and I still have all my fingers and toes, so that's a good thing.
Yeah, you've done exceptionally well, and we don't always. How can I say this? You're the chief operating officer, and I want to make sure that people understand. I wrote a story about this just last week in the newsletter, saying you are more than just. And Pete, just to share with our listeners as well, I ran into some amazing people at Penn State University last week, and I was presenting to their entire campus dining employees. So this was not only those at State Park, at University Park, State College, but it was also all of their Commonwealth campuses. And I will never forget, I met one young lady, and I said, so tell me what you do. And she's like, I'm just a cashier. And I was just kind of thrown by that. No, you're more than just a cashier. Tell me what you do. Well, I swipe cards and I make sure the payment and I collect the money for people to pay. Okay, but what else do you do? Well, I smile at every single person. What else do you do? I make them feel comfortable. What else do you do? I look for people that are lost and I give them directions. Well, what else do you do? I make sure people that tell me their dietary restrictions, I advise them on what are the selections for the day. I'm like, so you're telling me you are more than, so when you
Yeah,
just say, right, well, I guess I've done okay. Yeah, Pete, you've done exceptionally well as a human being and also as a leader of people and as a creative individual. So
yeah.
so
I think
tell
in
us,
that example, yeah,
yeah,
in that example, the swiping of the card is the least important thing that
yeah,
person does any given day. And I think a lot of people you got to switch it around, right? Like I'm a servant, I help people. Oh, and then I also have to swipe this card as part of my day to day
yes.
job.
Yeah. Yeah. And the same thing with you. I typed in a little description about, yes, you are helping online organizations online. You're helping hotel companies and other organizations succeed online.
Yeah,
Okay. But you're doing it in a way that you are helping to interpret the best things that they can do and why they should do them. And then you're almost interpreting them in a very easy way that people can understand. I want to get to that eventually. So growing up, siblings.
yeah. I have a sister who's 2 years older and a brother who's 2 years younger, so I'm kind of stuck right in the middle.
Okay. And when you were growing up, did you know what you wanted to do for a career?
I didn't, and I think it's pretty safe to say I still don't. So I always try new things and kind of see if I can kind of find out where's that sweet spot. I think a lot of people might think they know what they want to do, and some are blessed and they actually do. But it's a hard process to find. Uh, I think the trick is just to try new things, right?
Yeah. And when you say that you're still not sure, in addition to being a chief operating officer, what else do you think you maybe want to do in addition? How's that for a question?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I think it comes down to kind of one of my things I always tell people, and I tell myself is learn one new thing. When I say learn one new thing, actually learn it once a year. Uh, you don't necessarily have to learn a million things, but pick one thing that you say I want to become not not necessarily an expert, but I want to be very comfortable with fill in the blank.
Okay.
And when you do that, you kind of start realizing, wait a minute, there's so many things that we can do, either parallel to what we do or directly related to, in my case, hotel marketing. But you
Yeah.
had to try these new things. You had to learn these new things, and all that stuff's going to percolate to everything that you do.
Yeah. So how are you still learning, Pete?
Let's see. So over the years, I've done everything from I learned beekeeping. Uh, I did that for a couple years. Lock picking, just because
Okay.
I wanted to. Right now, I'm really diving into being a better COO with books like Traction, which is a phenomenal book if you haven't read it yet by Gino Wickman. And you're just always pushing the limits, right? There's a lot out there that you don't know that if you learn, it's going to help everything else that you do. I think it keeps your mind hungry as well.
Yeah, and I love that, and I use this statement whenever I share with audiences that it's easy to be, but better to become. And I think you are definitely showing a prime example of that quote that you could remain content. And I want everyone to be content, but you could remain not learning. You could be not motivated. You could be uneducated on a certain topic, but you're realizing that you feel better when you are learning, when you are becoming better. So easy to be. That's the path that most people are taking. But it sounds like
Yeah.
you are taking the better to become because you're seeing benefit. How are you finding the energy to do all these things? I mean, in addition to being a chief operating officer, how do you have time to, and plus two kids, um, and a family, right? How are you finding time and energy to be able to do these extra things that are fulfilling your life?
I think it's kind of one of those self-fulfilling prophecies, whereas if all you do is say, okay, I'm COO, I have to run this company, you get so mired in that you end up getting stagnant and you get tired and worn out.
Hmm.
But if you add in things that you're also passionate about that
Yeah.
kind of keep your brain active, I feel like you find the time.
Hmm.
It helps not to get distracted by meaningless things. Be a little bit intentful with your decisions of how you spend the one resource that you can't get back, which is time.
Yeah.
I think when you do that, you're able to cram a lot of stuff in and still have time to be the dad, be
Hmm.
the husband, be the guy who wants to go out and play some golf or whatever it might be. But
Hmm.
you have to be intentful with how you spend the time that you got here.
I mean, what a great way of saying that. And there's another acronym or another quote, I guess, that I've been sharing that someone had told me about. You just need to make sure that your cup is full, so you have enough to give to others. So if your cup is empty, you have nothing else to give. And I guess that would also apply from a professional lens. If you're spending all of your time thinking about how to improve as a chief operating officer, how to grow TravelBoom more and more, that's probably going to deplete your cup. But when you're doing things
Mhm.
with your kids, when you're doing things with your wife, when you're doing things with family and friends, when you're learning how to pick a lock, when you're learning how to keep bees, I guess that is essentially you filling up your cup. It just happens to be filled up with a lot of different things, not necessarily one beverage, and that keeps you going. Have you ever thought about that for your life?
Not in that context. I really love that. The way I typically look at it is what you're doing is you're solving little problems, which is
Mhm,
all that your professional life is, and really your personal life as well.
mhm,
If you look at it from a say beekeeping perspective, which I haven't done that in a while, but you start learning the little things that really matter.
mm,
Say from a beehive perspective, making sure you're doing the things to prevent that hive from getting wax moths, which is a problem for bees if you didn't know. But you do things in advance of the problem, and you start
mhm,
figuring out, okay, everything is very formulaic, everything is very uh,
mhm.
laid out for you. It's just
Yes.
making sure you're doing things in the right order and forecasting what's going to happen next. And then a lot of times life becomes kind of simple.
Yeah, okay, so you learned that approach from keeping bees, correct?
Yeah,
Uh,
I
you
think I refined it from keeping bees. Yeah.
yeah, okay, and then had you been able to apply it to what you were doing from a professional lens?
By Yes, by all means. So,
Yeah.
a perfect example is you have a client, you want that client to be happy, right? Well,
Mhm,
the rule is you don't wait till the client is,
mm,
super upset before you try to make that client happy. No,
yes.
you're going to do that throughout the whole process. You're going to cultivate that relationship. You're going to cultivate that ecosystem you have with the client,
Mhm,
and they never have to get upset, right? They can always be happy. They can always be thriving, and then
mhm.
together everybody grows together, right? So TravelBoom is growing because I have happy clients. The client is growing because they have an agency that cares about them and kind of help brings them up as well.
Yeah, and I guess and I'm thinking even about when from a client lens, you establish trust and you build rapport. I
Mhm.
will still get very frustrated when I say yes to a connection. People want to connect with me. Great, lovely, thank you. But then the next email comes or the next LinkedIn message comes and it said, "Are you ever interested in doing a podcast?" Well, if you knew anything about me, I already have a podcast. Well, are you
Mhm.
interested in writing a book? Well, if you knew anything about me, I already wrote a book. Or the best one is, are you ever interested in starting a sandwich franchise? You know nothing about me. What entitles you to be able to jump to that question without getting to know me? And I'm thinking it would be similar with regard to bees. They have to feel comfortable. You have to build that trust. You have to provide them with the right environment for them to be able to feel comfortable. For the honeybee, and I'm just making up words and you can correct me, is going to be comfortable in the place in which the gatherers of bees are going to then produce I mean, so it's a whole process. It's really a whole
Mhm.
process. I never really thought about that, but boy, you could, Pete, write a whole book or do a whole episode on the impact of honeybees and how it affects business.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think it comes down to being respectful to the other person, right? So
Mhm.
if I were to come on your podcast and say, I don't know if you have ever thought about this, but you should write a book. It's like, okay, wait a minute. You're
Yeah.
giving me your time, and I
Mhm.
haven't taken 5 minutes. I
Right.
mean, we have the entire world at our fingertips between the
Yes.
web and everything else. I should know a couple things like that, just so we have a fun conversation back and forth, and I'm not, asking, the very basic questions. I
Yes.
want to get beyond that and actually figure out the why.
And that's why then I think that there's value in the conversations that you have on your podcast and the people that I'm having on my podcast as well. It's meaningful conversations that matter. It's deeper than just surfacey things. Like we're going to get into knowing a little bit more about you, but that's what the goal is, to know about Pete DiMaio, and then, of course, to learn about TravelBoom and what you're doing as a profession. I want to go back to the marketing end of things. So growing up, understood middle child, understanding moving to South Carolina, the whole lens of marketing, and I know that's what you had studied. When, and why? Why did you think that that was a subject that you wanted to pursue? When and why, I guess.
So I've always enjoyed, making things, interacting with others, and I don't want to say necessarily taking a leadership role, but kind of, guiding people down a path. So
Mhm.
that might be when I was a kid working at a golf course at the bag drop. You want to make sure that you're doing that the right way. You want to make sure that they feel comfortable and welcome, because at the end of the day, if you do that, they're going to hand you that, dollar or the $5 or whatever it might be. So there was always that, obviously, financial motivation of the marketing side of the world. And then the other thing too is it's never stagnant, right? It's
Mm.
always changing. I started in the business in 2000, even after I graduated from college, and nothing that I did then from a technical perspective is in any way relevant whatsoever. The concepts are,
Yeah.
the things that we learned of how to accomplish something are, but nobody has asked me about the proper way to produce a magazine ad using film.
Right.
That's not so important anymore.
Yeah, and it's so interesting, but you learned the process, you learned the discipline to be able to apply it.
Yep,
Okay.
exactly.
Uh, so when you finished with marketing at is East Carolina, correct?
Coastal Carolina University.
Oh, Coastal Carolina, sorry,
Yeah.
Coastal Carolina. You get your degree.
Mhm.
What do you think you want to do?
So at that point, I didn't know. I actually went into timeshare for a little bit
Mhm.
and realized I made a horrible decision that, selling timeshare was really not my passion at all. And I had a hard time finding that balance, between doing that and then coming home and being a little bit, less, high key, I guess.
Mhm.
Uh,
Mhm.
so then I went and worked at a hotel a little bit, with the golf courses a little bit, and then I kind of found my position with a company called the Brandon Agency. It's actually, I'm still with them within a different organization within that group of agencies, and that's kind of where I was like, oh, okay, this makes sense. There's a good family culture here, and I was able to grow,
Mhm.
despite different job opportunities coming up. It's one of those things that always comes back because you have something so phenomenal where you are.
Yeah. Yeah, so good people.
Yep,
Good
most important.
people, right, important values, family type of culture, and you continue to grow even when companies, organizations, or different departments were being bought and sold, you continue to excel within that organization.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll kind of tie it back to a story. So my wife and I got married. I think it was 2003. Hopefully, I got that right, and if she's listening.
Yeah.
But so I asked her to marry me. Didn't tell anybody except for one of the account managers at the agency. So
Mhm.
we go out to a nice fancy dinner to celebrate and everything like that. And the bill comes. We knew it was going to be a big one. We open it up. It just says, "Congratulations. We're so excited for you, Scott Brandon."
Wow.
Never talked to him at all about that. But he found out, and it's like, okay, this is a very important milestone. He needs to be taken
Wow.
care of. Didn't ask
Wow.
for anything, didn't expect anything. And I think that was kind of the things like, hey, you stick around. Someone's trying to take care of you. You want to return the favor
Yeah.
and be loyal and take care of them as well.
Yeah. And Pete, that is so unusual to hear
Right?
things like that. And there's a statement that I share. It's notice, observe, anticipate, and over deliver. And
Hmm.
what you just said with Scott Brandon, that is exactly what he chose to do. He noticed, he observed, he heard, he anticipated what would be nice, and then over delivering without seeking to get, he wasn't doing it to get a photograph, right? He wasn't
Right.
doing it to do a press release. He was doing it because he was genuinely happy for you and your wife to be able to go through that celebration. That is so incredibly unusual.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And,
thank you.
and
Yeah,
never mentioned it at all.
ever. Wow.
Not to the office, not to the team. It was just, hey,
Yeah. Yeah.
you've been taken care of.
Wow. Um, Did that ever inspire you to do anything? I don't want to say similar, but have you been able to do anything from an over deliver perspective for your team? You're leading a lot of people.
Yeah.
You have a high level position. Can you share with us an example of how perhaps his action inspired you? Because Pete, what I'm finding is that there's a culture often in companies that they do that. And then there's also a culture in which people don't do that. So knowing
Mhm.
that, right, Scott, one of the founders of the company, correct?
Yep.
Yeah, did that. How did that make you feel, and how did that inspire you to do something not similar, but along the same levels of making someone feel special?
Well, I mean, so this is a guy who's, running seven different agencies of various levels and whatnot, and you get the time to do that. It makes you say, wait a minute, I'm
Mm,
not that busy. I can
mhm.
do this for my team
Yeah.
because, of the big slice of the big pie, I'm a very small slice. So I need to make sure that I'm over delivering. And it's little things, so that might be one of them. It's, somebody has a new kid, making sure that they're taken care of,
Yeah.
all the way down to, uh, someone mentioned that, oh, my monitor's frustrating.
Mhm.
Well, 2 days later, Amazon drops off a new monitor to them. Just little things like that. You're like, okay, wait a minute.
Yeah.
He heard that I had a problem, and now it was solved. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's kind of what I took out of that. Is like, oh, boom. I heard you. I understood what your problem is, and
Mhm.
I've kind of helped to make your life a little bit easier.
Mhm. Yeah, tremendous, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to get you on, because I know you had stories like that. I know you do that for other people, and it is unusual because most people don't. You are
Yeah.
finding the time, and we're going back to what we've learned so far, Pete. We're finding the time because you have learned from beekeeping and from other things that you can do other things that help fill your cup so you have enough energy, you're feeling fulfilled. But in those other things that you're doing, the beekeeping, the picking of locks, is probably teaching you process. Picking of
Mhm.
locks is probably teaching you creativity, how to solve a problem, how to try different, like whatever those things are teaching you. It's so cool. And then you're being able to apply that to your personal life and then also your work life
Mhm.
by realizing I can be balanced. I can spend time with the family. I can be balanced. I can have extra curricular activities, fun things to do. I can be balanced. I can have hobbies. And while I'm doing all those things, I can also realize that there's a process to everything. And I can always find time to do something nice for others.
Mhm. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, you
Amazing.
make it sound like I'm a better person. I'm not.
Yes.
I'm a piece
Yes.
of crap
Yes, you
most
are.
times, but, I always try to exceed, where I can at least.
And then, Pete, let's talk about your progression within your company. And I know when I was when we first talked, not this time, but several weeks ago, I was looking at your LinkedIn profile, and I said, "Oh, so you've been in this role for this long, and with this company for this long," and essentially, it's the same organization, correct? It was just
It is.
different variations. So it's been how long? And I'll say Travel Boom, but how many years in total?
So in total, I started with the agency that the group of
Yeah.
agents was with. It was January 3rd, 2000 even.
Incredible,
Uh,
incredible.
yeah, so going on 25 years now, and I've progressed from there. I was an account coordinator, moved up to account manager. At the time, the web was just starting to happen.
Mhm,
So not long after that, I actually moved over to the interactive account manager was a role that they had there because it was kind of new. And from there, it kind of just progressed and progressed. We saw that there was a real need and desire to have for independent hoteliers to be
mhm,
able to compete against these big Marriotts and Hiltons and
mhm,
everybody else, but they didn't have a share of the voice,
mhm,
particularly online. And that's where the company that was TravelBoom, it was called Fuel Interactive and Fuel Travel before that, really evolved. And we realized that we can't necessarily be one thing to all people. What we really need to do is focus and dedicate our attention to becoming hoteliers who are on
mhm,
the marketing side,
mhm.
which allows us to have a conversation with a property and talk
Yeah,
about the nuances of driving RevPAR and different ways of managing occupancy and revenue management, whatever that might be. We want to have those conversations because kind of like you mentioned at the very beginning of the podcast, I wouldn't think to say, "Hey, have you ever thought about doing a podcast, Bart?" I
Hmm.
wouldn't think of asking a hotelier to invest money in our company to
Yeah,
us help them grow if I don't know the basics of the
yeah,
business, right? And too many people do.
right. And so, Pete, how did you and the team then become hoteliers? Because looking at your LinkedIn profile, I'm not seeing Marriott, Hilton, Hyatt. You have been with TravelBoom and its parent company and agency for
Mhm.
20, almost 25 years. How
Yep.
did you become a hotelier?
It goes back to learning how to pick a lock, right?
Uh-huh.
There's a challenge that you have to figure out, and I worked in the hotel space for a little bit. It wasn't LinkedIn worthy, working the front desk at Holiday Inns and
Yeah.
things like that. So you kind of got into it a little bit, but really what it came down to was really dedicating yourself. And it's kind of like a learning a foreign language. At a
Hmm.
certain point, you start thinking in that foreign
Right.
language.
Right.
What we try to do is I try to get my team to do is start thinking in the language of a hotelier, not the
Hmm.
language of a marketer, because
Great.
then we can kind of fuse those things together. And I think it works better that way.
Right. And no disrespect to your LinkedIn profile, but I know you did share that you had been doing some time in the beginning, right, in hotels and in the
Hmm.
restaurant world. So you were getting a general understanding of it, but it wasn't like you were 24 years or 35 years like me, right,
Yeah.
doing hotel related things. So I love that you integrated yourself and you got your team to integrate themselves into understanding what are the needs that a hotelier would have. Uh,
Hmm.
and so once you understood what a hotelier, um, what their needs were like, how were you able to apply your solutions for what they needed?
It's a feedback loop. There's what's called the OODA loop: observe, orient, decide, and act. uh, and really, that it kind of comes down to if it's a hobby, if it's golf, if it's hotel, it's all basically the same. You understand what the problem is, you educate yourself, you decide what you want to do, you act, and then it's a loop. So you go back to observe in that case. So okay, now that we've done that, what does the analytics say? Did this hotelier increase their occupancy during a key period of time that they needed because of email campaign, because of a paid campaign, because a new website, whatever it might be. Oh, it did. Great. Let's do that, but better. Or, it didn't. Let's try something different. It's okay that we failed, but we're going to learn a lot from it so it doesn't happen again and we do something different.
Mm. Yeah, great, great. And what do you think and what have you seen make great leaders? You're a chief operating officer. You're leading a lot of people, a lot of responsibilities. Based on what you have seen from others being great leaders and what you've been able to apply yourself, what are some of the characteristics that you think make up a great leader?
So I would say that the first ones that we talked about, caring for your team.
Hmm.
We talked about being that servant leader where you're trying to understand and how I can help somebody.
Hmm.
Can I get you a new monitor? Just basic stuff like that, like the little stuff that is so important to everybody else. But I think one of the things I think really makes a great leader is thinking about the broken window theory. Have you ever heard of the broken window theory?
No, no, please share.
Okay. So this goes back to the 80s, and I think Giuliani put it in place during uh, the early days of New York City when they're having tons of problems. And the
Hmm.
theory basically says if a window in a building is left broken, the rest of the windows will eventually break and the building will fall apart. But if the moment you see that a window is broken, you go fix that window.
Hmm.
You notice that the paint is chipping, you immediately scrape it and repaint it. And you do those little details that
Hmm.
one create the culture of excellence that I'm not going to accept a broken window.
Yes.
And you make it to the point where I saw a broken window, which means, that's my job to get it fixed. And I think those
Mhm.
great leaders, I do not count myself among them, but the great leaders who do that and instill in their team, hey, do this, find those little details that aren't perfect and let's improve
Mhm.
upon them. I think
Mhm.
that kind of creates that flywheel that's continues to create success after success.
Yeah, wow. And I'm thinking about it, the little details. So for any of our hoteliers or event planners that are listening, for a hotelier to be able um, to get the name on the welcome card proper, Pete, they could give you the best, let's say you're a bourbon drinker, they could give you the best bottle of bourbon, but if they spelled your name Peatly
Yep.
or Paeder, Peter,
Mhm.
and I'm just making up, that's not necessarily going to leave the same impression, is it? Right?
No,
Or
perfect example. In the
yeah.
title card in this StreamYard thing, it says Pete DiMaio and the M is capitalized, my last name. That's a
Mhm.
small you got that right. A
Yeah.
lot of
Well,
people it's just DiMaio, but those little details make so much different in terms of personalization.
right. And so if individuals are paying attention to that, if companies are paying attention to that, if everyone feels empowered to pay attention to that, then, and a friend of mine shared this a long time ago, if everyone sweeps their front porch, then the neighborhood is
Yep.
going to be clean.
Yep,
It,
exactly. It's the same thing as that
right.
broken window theory.
Yeah, yeah, it's a neighborly approach. Okay. With the last couple of minutes that we have remaining, Pete, I want to understand how would you describe what TravelBoom does? We do have a lot of our listeners, yes, our hoteliers, our event planners, our executive directors, not everybody, but that's why I like talking about the leadership qualities and the balance qualities and learning more about your background and your approach, setting the culture for doing nice and kind things, terrific. Now, for those people that are in the hospitality world, what is the best way that you could describe what TravelBoom does, and how do they do it differently?
So what we do is actually really simple. Is what we do is we help independent hoteliers succeed online.
Hmm.
That includes property management companies, vacation rental companies, but helping independent hoteliers get the tools that they need, monitor and achieve success. And the way we do that is anything from a digital space, obviously paid website, social, you name it. Uh,
Hmm.
what makes us a little bit different is one, we are one of several agencies within our larger organization, which is called TBA Worldwide.
Hmm.
But if I need to get some world class creative, we have that through another agency. I can bring them in. You need video production, we've got that taken care of. But most importantly, what we have is that caring aspect in
Hmm.
understanding the business. So many people think of marketing as a commodity and like as a numbers game of an agency is going to churn 20% of their business every year.
Hmm.
That to me is a horrible, horrible way of looking at things. It's like,
Hmm.
no, if I have a client, we have one client that has been a client of the agency since the late 60s, I believe, a long, long time. Uh,
Wow.
between overall, and I think that's the point. Is what makes us different is uh, one of our clients, they had a big brand video announcement. They wanted to do a fun like movie theme,
Hmm.
uh, kind of like reveal for their internal office.
Hmm.
Well, they had a really cool popcorn machine show up a couple days beforehand to kind of tie into that theme. I feel horrible about it because it arrived in like a million pieces. And while they're getting ready for this big video reveal, they also had to break out the wrenches and screwdrivers and figure how to, build this industrial popcorn machine. But I think that's the point, is right? Is we talked about earlier, is like if you care and you integrate yourself into your clients' businesses,
Yeah.
that's that difference that you can't necessarily quantify
Hmm.
with, you know, this is our secret sauce. It's we care. I
Yeah,
think
you
that's
care.
that's a pretty good thing.
And that's the culture, right from the beginning. That was one of the culture aspects that you had mentioned with Scott. That was the culture.
Hmm.
And so through the
Yep.
year, that caring culture. So yes, from a global lens, you have aspects and you have access to all different types of resources, but one of the major differentiators is that you care. So Pete, I
Yep.
want to make sure that I'm kind of reiterating and also understanding. You are providing marketing solutions for primarily independent hotels and also organizations that are dealing with vacation rentals, primarily independent.
Yes. So
Okay.
the reason that we do independent is if you are under, in the term we call them, a flagged property,
Hmm.
Hilton, Marriott, things like that, you have a structure and a process document in place where
Hmm.
your flag is going to manage a lot of your things, website, PPC, SEO. That
Yes.
independent hotelier, a lot of times they're floating in this big ocean in a little boat, and they don't know or have the resources to do that. So
Hmm.
that's really where we come in and, hey, let's handle it for you. We'll
Yes.
show you what we do. We'll show you the data. It's not opinion based. It's, hey, the data says do this. So we do that. Very
Okay.
process oriented.
All right. So I might have a lead for you, but let's just say this. We went to Deep Creek, Maryland, presented last week as I had shared at Penn State University, and we stayed one night. My wife and my son were able to go with me. Deep Creek Lake, Maryland. Great venue, about 2 hours, 2.5 hours from here. And there was an incredible, I believe, an independent lodge called Cove Creek Lodge. Do you know it? Are you laughing because you know it?
I know it very well, and we've been actually working with them for a while. I'm hoping that they're going to be a client really soon,
Okay.
but we haven't got any agreement signed yet. But yes,
Okay.
I know them very, very
Okay.
well, and the team there and everything.
Yeah. Okay. Amazing. 29 rooms. And there were so many elements. In fact, I think I referenced it a little bit in my newsletter, but Pete, you and I can talk a little bit more because one of the easiest, simplest, most enjoyable lodges, hotel experiences I think we've had. And we've stayed at a lot of luxury hotels during my career. But the things that they did, and I'll give you two little examples. And for our listeners, Cove Creek Lodge in Deep Creek Lake, Maryland, great individuals. I'll give you two examples. One was that the person that was assisting us from a front desk lens, and this goes back to just a manager. Are you one of the owners? Are you one of the founders of this lodge? No, I'm just a manager. I'm just a hotel receptionist. I'm like, you are so much more than that. We arrived late last night. We would like a little time to kayak. I know checkout time is at 11. Is there any way that you could push it to 11:30? And she said, well, tell me, what room are you in? We're glad you're here. What room are you in? I told her. And she said, how would 1 o'clock be? I didn't ask for 1 o'clock. I didn't even ask for 12 noon. I asked for 11:30. I asked for 30 minutes after. And she noticed, observed, anticipated, over delivered simply by that statement. How would 1 o'clock be so you can enjoy kayaking a little bit more? Right. That one little simple thing and her kindness and willingness was just exceptional. So let's go with an example of an independent like that, phenomenal property. What are three things that you might help them with, or any independent property that is listening? What are three things that you might help with?
So to build on the thing that
Yeah.
that she did, it
Yeah.
was free. It didn't cost
Free.
them anything. If
Yeah.
that room was not occupied the prior night, stay till 4. You know, if I can give you that amazing experience, okay, you just share it with over 100,000 people
Yeah.
because they gave you something that was free.
Yeah.
You
Shout
know,
out
it was
Tiffany.
yeah. Thank you, Tiffany.
Shout out
Yeah.
Tiffany
So
and shout out Jeremy for handling the room reservation.
see,
Yeah.
that's fantastic. Yeah, we've been talking with David and a couple of people there,
Yeah.
and they're
Yeah.
phenomenal people.
Yeah. Ownership out of Pittsburgh. Right.
Yep. So
Yeah.
they do a phenomenal job. The fact that they have like the kayaks and the paddle boards, they're just free. Here, you're at a lake. You can
Yeah.
take stuff with you, but we're not going to charge you $5 for it, whatever it might be. Just go use it. Have a wonderful experience.
Yeah.
I think what they need is the fact that they're running a property
Mhm.
and they have rooms that are dirty. They have
Mhm.
fixtures that are out. They have capital investment that they have to focus on.
Mhm.
They need somebody to roll up their sleeves and say, okay, but you also got to do the marketing because if,
Mhm.
you know, for them, just like everybody else, you're starting to head into that shoulder season where
Right.
kids are going back to school. What do you do with
Yes.
those finite rooms that are going to go unused unless you lean into it
Yes.
and expand that pool of potential guests that you have?
Yeah. So great. So SEO, right? Search engine optimization, the marketing element, having videos for it. So, I mean, I found it off of like, I mean, this, I don't know if this is to be bad, but like off of Airbnb or VRBO, right?
Mhm.
When I searched hotels, in Deep Creek, I don't think it popped up, to be honest, right? I don't think it was off of Priceline or Kayak or, any other tools that I would be using. But let me just share, two other things that I thought were exceptional. Uh, they had in you'll appreciate this, Pete, and our listeners. Sometimes you want to have the interaction with individuals, and then sometimes you don't need it. You just need to buy a soda. You need to buy a candy bar. Well, they have self-serve checkout essentially for an incredible market. The market has some of the best gourmet-ish snacks that you could ever imagine. High-end chocolate, and and then they have tennis balls for your dogs if you forgot a tennis ball for your dog that you bring
Yeah.
with you, or in dog snacks. And so you just, you scan it and then you pay for it. And then if you like and we bought my son a sweatshirt. If you like the sweatshirts and we're not available, just come back in the morning and pay with it, by credit card or by cash. Yeah, right. We trust you. So just very unique. Oh, the last thing that was super, super cool. There's a little stream behind the property. And I mentioned it to Tiffany. I said, I don't know if it was her or the team that did it, but there's a little, like, the stream, it's 2 inches of water. It's clean water. It's coming down off of the mountain, but someone put about 10 rubber ducks in there just to play with, right? A little part of a stream, 10 rubber ducks just to play with. And then they put in these brightly colored ceramic frogs just to be different. And it's those things that really, how much did rubber ducks cost? Next to nothing. But boy, the kids want to go back because I remember I could play with the rubber ducks, and they were always in the back of the stream, and the kayaks were clean and comfortable. And there's just so many different elements that were so very, very cool. So Pete, getting back to, go ahead.
Oh no, I'd say that kind of goes back to when we're looking for a client. I think it's a two-way street, right? And what I always go back to is look at the innkeepers of old, who their job was basically to, be your Sherpa through your vacation, right? Yes. Before the web and everything like that, it was, I have to make this a special experience. So as a true innkeeper, what are you doing to make sure that your guests are like, oh my gosh, I went there, I want to stay another day. It's not just a transaction for me. It's that person, it's your guest's life, right? They only get to go on vacation, if they're lucky once a year, if they're really lucky twice. Are you making it so amazing that their kid says, that's the place with the rubber ducks? Man, that's gold.
Yeah, that's gold. That's gold. And then those elements, Pete, you and your team with TravelBoom, you are helping to identify those, pull those in, and then help the independent hotels tell a story and get the word out, correct?
Yeah,
through the web,
exactly.
through videos, through marketing, through everything that you just talked about. That is how you can help independent hotels get more awareness and help build their revenue and show greater ROI.
Yep, and it's exactly based on finding out what Tiffany does that nobody else knows that she does. Because reviews, everybody lives and dies by reviews. But if you have a review in a story of Bart's experience at the property, that's what you want to connect with and say, okay, that's what we're already doing. So we don't have to create this persona of a hotel that cares. No, we're already doing. Let's just tell people about the great ducks and the free, paddleboards and kayaks.
Yeah, and that's just one element of it. That's just the things. But how did we feel? How did she make us feel? How did Jeremy make us feel when we called in to make the room reservation? All of those things. Last thing I'll share with you, Pete, and then I know we have to conclude here, but thank you for sharing more about you, what you've done, and more about what TravelBoom can do. And, and you are so funny because you are so subtle that you don't necessarily want to say too much about what you all do because that's who you are. You don't need to be in anyone's face. The point, and I shared with you, it's the goal of the podcast is get to have people become raving fans of you, Pete DiMaio, and then want to learn. Okay, I really liked Pete. I liked his ideas. He seemed like a really good guy. Let me learn a little bit more about TravelBoom. Okay, that's how it works. So thank you for. You are extraordinarily subtle, and I don't want to make you feel uncomfortable. You are so subtle that you don't want to overly promote anything, but that's who you are, and I appreciate that's who you are. But there is an intrigue there. Go ahead, Pete.
Oh no, I say it. Obviously, this podcast is not about the hard sell for the hotel. But I think it is important to know, what we do is we found the solution for independent hoteliers to really be able to succeed. And it's complex. You can't say every hotel has to do this from an SEO perspective, or every hotel has to be running X type of PMAX campaign for PPC, because that may not be right for Cove Creek Lodge or whomever you're talking to. I think what it comes down to is, okay, we're going to do everything we can from an interactive and digital perspective to help you succeed. That might be a phenomenal social influencer program where I'm reaching out to fans who are going to travel. Or that might be the most horrible idea ever if you are a roadside inn and I just need people who are too tired on 95 and need a place to sleep. Influencer's not going to be helpful there. You got to find out what the hotelier actually needs and then deliver and over deliver that versus just, oh, well, our program says you get this, 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 and this, so let's do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, tailored. It's tailored specifically to
Yep.
what they need. And then because of the family customized approach, you're spending the time getting to know what does an organization, what does a hotel need, what does a lodge need. I need to share this last story because it really kind of blew me away. Pete, I don't know if I mentioned, but I travel with gratitude stones in my pocket. And when I meet people that are exceptional, I give them a gratitude stone. And I don't remember if I had one to give to you at HITEC or not. Does that ring a bell? Did I give you a stone?
I didn't get a gratitude stone.
All right.
Oh,
Well,
no.
next time I see you, I will give you a gratitude stone. But
All right,
anyway,
I'll hold you to it.
it's just something that a friend of mine in Hawaii kind of taught me, and it's about appreciation and truly gratitude. So, because I was so impressed with Tiffany, I gave her a gratitude stone whenever we were checking out. And I just wanted her to know that her flexibility in over delivering by giving us the late checkout created exceptional memories for us. Thank you, Tiffany. Tiffany, I travel with gratitude stones. I would like you to have one. And this is who I am and what I do. As soon as I gave it to her, she started tearing up. And she said, I collect stones. I said,
Oh,
so it has a meaning for you? She's like, yeah, wait right here. She goes back, comes out with a little blue bag, and she pours them out onto the front desk, into her hand, then onto the front desk. And she shares with me a story. And I don't think she would mind me sharing the story because it's meaningful. But her father had passed when she was in fifth grade. And the bag of stones that she travels and she keeps with her at all times were the stones that her and her dad picked out when they went to Laurel Cavern, if I get the name right. At the end of the tours of these caverns, there's in a gift shop, and they had
yeah.
different little gemstones that you could pick out. And these stones were the ones that her father helped her pick out. And so now to be able to remember her father, she carries them everywhere in a little blue black bag. And I'll send you a picture, Pete, because
Oh,
it was
that's
just,
phenomenal.
and she took my stone and put it in with hers. And
Yeah.
I talked about how great I thought she was, that she was doing a great job. And she's so happy working at that lodge because they have entrusted and empowered her. She's a young gal. She's like 26 years old. They've empowered her and trust her to basically be able to be the manager on duty.
Mhm.
And that and being recognized for doing a great job by someone just saying thank you, I think made her day, and she helped to make our day. And that's what we do. That's what you are
I
doing
love
every
that.
single day, and trying to gather those stories, gather that information from independent hotels, and then being able to help reciprocate, interpret, and share those stories because people are going to remember stories 22 times more than they will data. And that's the
Mhm.
feeling. And I guess to
Yep.
your point, Pete, and a lot of those things are free,
Yep.
right? Being nice
Exactly.
to someone, it's free. All right, Pete, I cannot thank you enough. Truly enjoyed the conversation. I knew we would hit it off the first time that we met at HITEC. If individuals would like to learn more about TravelBoom, where can we direct them?
So a couple things you could do. One is, hit us up on LinkedIn. It's at /company/travelboom marketing. Our website is definitely the first place to go, which is travelboommarketing.com. Personally, you can always reach out to me, which is pete.dimaio at TravelBoom Marketing. When we're talking, you'll get my cell phone number and everything. I'm completely accessible that way. And then if they want and they're not tired of hearing my voice yet, we also have a hotel podcast,
Yes.
aptly named the Hotel Marketing Podcast, which
Yes.
is on pretty much any podcatcher app that you're using. But we just released episode 262 that's coming out tomorrow, depending on when this is. It's on August 20th. So tune in for that one where we talk about 2025 hotel marketing budgets. But yeah, so love talking hotels and love talking to anybody who wants to listen to me
Yeah.
yammering on about it.
No, come on. I mean, great information. I'm so glad to be able to have you on the show because you are enthusiastic, you're authentic, you're passionate, you're real, and that is very unique in the world that we live in today. So, Pete DiMaio, Chief Operating Officer of TravelBoom, BOOM, uh, tremendous individual. You're doing amazing things for your team and for so many independent hotels around the globe. Thank you, Pete. And we will be in touch. And I know you're going to have me on your show soon, so thank you in advance for that honor as well.
I'm really looking forward to bringing this conversation back up here in a couple weeks when we do our podcast.
Amazing. Thank you again, Pete.
Thanks so much, Bart. I appreciate it.